Hey guys, and welcome to day 4 of our movement challenge. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited. I hope you're feeling the shift that's taking place in your paradigm when it comes to how we understand the brain development of our kids and the impact that we can make on the direct progression of how our kids are developing. I hope you can feel that impact, whether you're a parent, a nanny, a grandparent. Like, you can make a huge difference. I am at my office today, so sorry I'm in a little bit different setting, not as good as what I typically like to do, but I am seeing patients later this afternoon. We've got our Friendsgiving going on, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to serve you today and be able to be here for this. Guys, this stuff that we're going through, I really want you to understand it's truly life-changing. It's life-changing for your child, and really it could be life-changing for you too. It just makes things so much fun. As I was doing the preparation for today, I was reading through and seeing the massive increase of a need in schools for things like OT, and occupational therapy specifically works on primitive reflexes and vestibular integrations. And so there's this huge need, and I just think that it's so fun to think about how we can be proactive and preventative. I just, that's where we are feeling like we make the biggest difference, because when you're able to be in front of a lot of these issues, it makes such a huge difference for your child overall. And to think that there's an entire profession created just to help with the integration of these things. If parents just knew more, guys, we would have such bigger success with our kids. So I just love this specific quote: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. This is something that we say in our office literally all the time. It's just, it's the chiropractic lifestyle. It's, thinking about things prior to there being problems. How were we made to move? How were we made to eat, move, think, all those things? And so congratulations for being here. I think it's just absolutely amazing. Just showing up and learning how to better care for your children. You guys are amazing for this. So we are, on day 4. So day 1, this program is really designed. If you're live now and you haven't seen day 1, 2, or 3, please make sure you go back and watch those, because this program is designed to build on itself. Monday, we learned about how movement is the body's first language. We learned about spinning. Day 2, we learned how these movements directly impact our gross motor milestones. We learned about inversions and how to train that posture and balance. In day 3, we learned about primitive reflexes, one of my favorite topics, and how ball work can definitely integrate those very specifically. So let's just do a real quick recap. We've got lots of juicy stuff to get into, so I'm going to make this really quick, but just a reminder of how we've learned that the brain develops from the bottom up, that we go from that primitive brain to the postural brain to purposeful knowledge that we can actually put into the brain. Vestibular input drives that integration, and that's why we're learning the things that we're learning today. I talked about my favorite analogy and how, early learning is much like compound interest. The earlier and the more deposits that you put in earlier, the bigger the return, the better the neural development of your child, the easier it is for them to have that lifelong love for learning. We also talked about how movement builds the brain, and that movement and milestones, how they directly create a lot of connections within our brain, and we don't have to rush milestones, but at the same time, we want to make sure that they're taking place and that they're taking place in the order that they're supposed to. We also talked about that milestone domino effect, right? And that each milestone knocks down the next domino for if we skip or when it's too weak, how that can have a chain effect and definitely impact our child's development and overall brain growth. We also talked yesterday about primitive reflexes and these crazy things that babies do, and how we're wired and designed to do these specific movements, and how they then are priming our body for us to have conscious development of these movements, and how much, if we don't integrate those movements those reflexes, how much of an impact that can also have in the fact that it creates a distraction of the brain, an immature brain. So we really wanted to make sure that we can really truly understand that. So today we're going to talk about another huge why behind why we want to be purposeful with our movement. Now, I've talked to you guys a little bit about how primitive babies and the Doman method, and I put this book up here. I'm going to send you guys the link to this book because it's just incredible if you want to take all of this stuff to a new level. This is where I got a lot of my information, that combined with my pediatric chiropractic coursework that I did, and just understanding the body. And I have 16 years of clinical experience as well, and so putting that all together is really what has made me want to make these programs. But Fit Baby, Smart Baby, Your Baby is an excellent book. They have great ideas for movements, and a lot of my ideas come from them. And so understanding that how this primitive, if we look at how we are raising babies in society today, I think it's really important for us to understand that it's very different today, right? And so we want to know, how do we get back to some of those primitive movements in the modern world today? And so through research through the Doman Institute, they say each baby is a product of their environment. And so how do we set up our environment? I think that's just really important. A baby must be stimulated to make sure that their brain is growing. So if we think about a baby that's been neglected, right? Super sad. I hate the thought process of it, but you can see a baby who's been neglected, they might be completely healthy overall, right? They didn't have a brain injury, they didn't have an issue, but they appear as though they do, right? They're going to have balance problems. Most of them have vision problems. They're going to have massive impacts on their physical, their ability to balance. A lot of the times these kids that have been neglected cannot actually eat food. Like, they just don't have the process because they've never been introduced to those feelings. And so they can't come with a full list of problems. Obviously, our kids are not neglected, right? Especially not to that level. But most of them, at the same time, can we do a better job of stimulating our kids in the ways that our ancestors did, right? That we were blueprinted, genetically designed to do. And so let me tell you that this example, I think it comes directly from the Doman Institutes, but they basically talk about how, things can happen on purpose, right? With purpose behind it, or some things can happen through a bunch of happy accidents. For example, so in order for a baby to want to move, right, they first need to be able to see. So when we're born, we're typically pretty blind. We can't speak. We can't move. So there's lots of things that we have to learn, and our brain has to learn in order to go from infanthood up through adulthood, right? And so there's so many things that we have to learn. But one of the things that they were talking about is how many many dads come home from work and say, hey, we in order to move, you have to be able to see. So how many dads come home and say, hey, how many times did you take your baby into bright light and then bring them into the dark, and then take them into the bright light and then bring them into the dark, and stimulate that pupillary light reflex, because we can't see until we can control the light in our eye, right? And so obviously that can happen through a bunch of happy accidents. But how often parents who don't know this, how often is, let's keep the lights dim, that's too bright for them. Whereas I love to even take like a little spotlight and just check those pupillary light reflexes several times after a diaper change. You'll see that's part of my brain building checklist. That is one thing that we do with those newborns, is you want to make sure that you're able to get them going in that way. And so being able to develop things on purpose versus through happy accidents, I think is a really important concept to grasp and understand, and take it as a purpose, as a parent, of a new thing you can do to build your child. And so for thousands of years, babies were never set still. Like, they were never set in a place where they just were strapped down and couldn't move. That wasn't a thing of the past. Okay. And so they were carried on our bodies, like they were tucked into slings. They were put into wraps. They were rocked during chores, right? They walked miles and miles each day. Our hunter-gatherers didn't have babysitters for their kids, right? Like, they took them with them. And so if they weren't being carried, they were down on blankets or mats, or they had them on dirt floors, right? And they were learning how to roll and push and crawl. Like, that's what they did while a parent was busy doing something else. And so they were stimulated vestibularly constantly, right? And so when we look at how they were, our hunter-gatherer ancestors didn't have gadgets. They didn't have gadgets to put them in. So they were either being held by a parent or held by somebody in their tribe, or their, and they would put them on the floor, and let them go. So this is like how I love to think, is you think back to that how we were ancestrally like made to move things. And so right after I was done with chiropractic school, I went and got my CCWP, which is a chiropractic wellness practitioner, and we studied genes and how we were made to eat, move, and think. And so what we did was we looked back at our hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and what things did we eat, or how did we move, how did we think. And that is the knowledge that I apply in my practice all the time. But now you want to think about, okay, but also, how did they raise kids, right? They didn't have a lot of these modern things. And so therefore, how are we genetically made to grow, develop, and what's best for the brain development? And putting them in a place where they can't move and explore is definitely not the answer. And that's what most contraptions when it comes to babies really look like, right? They got them strapped down. They're not able to move. They're not able to like really look around. So modern babies spend too much of their time contained, right? So car seats, strollers, bouncers, sit-me-ups, like all these devices, like they're not bad on their own. It's just the fact that they're used too often and for way too much time for these kids, right? And so it's not the fact that we're, putting them in these contraptions. It's the fact that we're replacing time that they should be moving with time that they're not. Right. And so that's the impact that it has on the brain. Pediatric groups now are talking all the time about container syndrome. And so this is now like become a new syndrome. And because of that, because babies are moving less, this syndrome is becoming more and more rampant. We see it in our office all the time. A lot of the times babies, because they're being sat up before they have postural control, their head ends up off to one side. And not that this is the only cause of torticollis, but it's a huge cause. And it definitely, if there's anything going on in the neck, is not going to make that better, right? And so getting them out of containers, getting them on the floor is one of the first things that we prescribe in our office. And I always like to talk about one of my favorite hacks that every time I post this on social media, every time I put it on Instagram, it goes viral, but is leave those car seats in your car. I like for my last baby, I didn't even have like the bucket kind that you could take out because she hated the car. So she never really she never fell asleep in it anyways. But like that's the only time that I think you should leave a baby in their car seat is when they are sleeping. Because if you think about it, if you're taking them in and out of that car seat, that's vestibular movement by wearing them, because that's typically what I would do. I'd always just strap baby onto me. That motion is going to feed their vestibular system with just your every motion. If they're in a car seat, they're not feeling that motion. They're not getting to see the world. A lot of times people pull the visors up and they're not getting the stimulation that a baby should be getting as they're advancing in the world, especially the older that they get, the more important that becomes. So today babies are moving less, right? We've got container syndrome. They're not getting enough movement, especially free movement on the floor. We talked about that domino effect and what that looks like. Milestones become delayed, right? Posture becomes weak. Sensory processing decreases, okay? Because they're not getting the input. They're not experiencing the world the way that they should. They're in a little container, right? They're contained. They often have vision tracking issues because, again, there's, visors over them. They're confined in this tiny little spot. We'll see problems also with clumsiness as they start to finally move, right? And so movement is the fertilizer for the brain. So you have to remember that. It's the fertilizer for the brain. When we're restricted, we are not moving. And so I think it's just really important to like have the understanding of what's happening with all of that. And so look at this. This is a bumbo seat. This kid is so cute. This is absolutely adorable, but it's absolutely terrible for this child. Okay. Because the big thing with this is this baby may have good head control, but definitely does not have the control to sit upright properly. And therefore they're putting stress into their spine, stress into their joints, and not stimulating the muscles that we need to have to get the core strength to actually be able to sit and crawl. This baby has not mastered that horizontal plane. So it's really important that we do that before we go vertical. So what kinds of things can we do to reclaim that blueprint? We can reset the environment, right? The brain responds fast, thankfully. The brain can always catch up. So if you've been putting your kids into contraptions and you've done containers, this is the time to make a choice and just get them out of your house. That's the biggest thing. If the convenience is there, it is convenient. And that's just the thing. I know that's why they've been designed. It does make parenting a lot more convenient. However, we had babies to raise them to be strong and healthy, and we want them to reach their potential. And this is something that's just so important to help them reach that potential. The beauty of the brain is that it can always catch up. It can reorganize. The nervous system is constantly reorganizing. So let's get into what some of those primitive movements really look like as we're going into things today. So we have 5 core vestibular movements to address. We have already addressed spinning, inversions, balls, and today we are going to drive our way into swinging. And I think swinging is I think it's probably one of my kids' favorite vestibular exercises. Therefore, I always want to make it available in my house. We're going to talk about all of those things today. I'm going to read this a little bit more just because I really want you to understand the benefits of swinging. Swinging is a powerful brain building movement. Most of us think of this as just something that we play with on the playground, but to the brain, it's actually a complex integration. And so it's one of the best tools that we can utilize to really truly integrate with the brain. When a child swings, 2 parts of their ears or 2 parts of their brain are working. We've got 2 pieces of the inner ear that are integrating to create connections between the brain and the body. We're going to integrate linear movements and rotation when we are swinging, which is really amazing. So together, these systems send constant messages to the brain and where we are in space, right? Especially as we're moving through space and swinging, you're able to move a big amount through space. So that makes a huge difference. Every swing, every push, every pause, every return, right, is refining how that your child is experiencing the world, how they're experiencing building balance and body awareness. And the most fascinating thing about swinging is the repetition. Okay. And the repetition and what this repetition does specifically for our brain. Repetition strengthens neural pathways. Okay. The more often that we those signal fires, the faster that those signals move. And because of that, it's going to organize the timing centers in our brain that are really important for attention, for reading, and for language. Okay. So every time your child's swinging, like, we're not just having fun, right? We are actually integrating amazing things in the brain. There also is this piece when it comes to swinging that's called predictability, and it gives the nervous system just that feeling of safety and control. And it's going to calm your child's mind. It's going to calm your child's body, because there's just that sense of safety there. So when your child's swinging and smiling, we just remember this is deep neurological organization. Okay. So that rhythmic moving, it's basically stimulating the cerebellum, which is the base of the brain. It's giving it a rhythmic workout. That cerebellum refines coordination, timing, and even supports higher function like focus and speech, and even emotional regulation. And so when we're swinging, we want to remember that those babies are going to come out. We want to see that they have joy, calm, and that they love it. If they don't, then you need to do some vestibular work, because that's something that's a very primitive need for our systems. Okay. So remember that your child doesn't just love to move. They don't just love to swing. They actually need it. And so when they don't want to stop, this is why. And I think it gives you a good understanding of exactly why. So when your child is swinging, there are some things that we want to observe about the baby. We want to see that their eyes are restabilizing as they're going through the swinging motion. So you'll see them, that really stimulates that vestibulo-ocular reflex. You'll see that kick in when they're swinging. It means their brain is learning to stabilize vision while the head moves. Okay. And so that is really important for things like reading, tracking words, if they're ever mimicking anything on a whiteboard. That is what's going to help that pathway become clearer and easier and stronger. Another thing that we're going to look for is you should see their core tightening. When they're changing direction, that's when you're going to feel them change or get that core engaged. So you won't always feel that, obviously, when you're actually swinging them on a swing, but we're going to go through some different things that way. But you're building up the core. So swinging is an incredible way to build up that core. The last thing is you just we want to make sure that your kid is having fun, like that you see some regulation success with the swinging motions, which is just so powerful. So let's go ahead and get into some of these movements. Now, with this swinging, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to show you, because I don't have a swing in my office, but I did bring some props so that you're going to be able to experience this. But we're going to start with our bobbly babies. So if you should have taken the quiz knowing what stage that your child is at. And so we're going to start off with these bobbly babies, and this is going to be done actually on mom. You're going to take your baby and you're going to have the ability to go ahead. I like to spread my fingers like this. So you give that neck just a little bit of support, and you're going to feel baby keep their strength, and you'll also feel that baby fatigue when they kind of can't keep that extensor going anymore. But what you're going to do is you're just going to have them in a football hold. You can see their little legs are on each side of my arm, and what you're going to do, I'm going to make sure you can see it, is you're just going to bring baby side to side like this. You can have your hand here to just support baby a little bit. It's great to also be able to bring them back and forth just like this, and moving them that way. All the angles of direction that you can have with them is going to just give them a little bit more vestibular input. So that's what it looks like for those bobbly babies. The next one is swinging them. This is a kettlebell swing. This is one that I put in almost every one of my programs, specifically at this roly-poly stage where they do have a little bbit more head control. So we don't have to support the head here. You don't want to go too crazy, but just know your child's ability. But you're going to get into a little bit of a squat position and holding baby just right on their core. This is where you can really feel their muscles engage. We're just going to go back and forth just like that, a little kettlebell swing. I love to do that when I pick them up. A lot of the times they're laying face down here. I'll pick them up and just swing them up and bring them over to me that way. And that's just a really great way to add in some more vestibular movements for that. The next one, I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger here. Is this one is getting on the swing yourself. Now, keep in mind, we're still in the creepy crawly stage. They have not yet mastered crawling, right? They haven't mastered that horizontal plane. So we want to continue to keep kids in that horizontal plane, even when we're having them swing. That's where they're going to gain the most brain benefit, right? And get them to their milestones a little bit quicker. And so this is where you can actually sit in a swing and go ahead and put them over your lap and go ahead and swing that way. Obviously, they're gonna be a little bit wiggly, but most kids, as soon as you start swinging, they're going to truly love and enjoy this experience. Whether this is in your house or taking them to the park. I think a lot of people wait too long to take kids to the park. They love being at the park, being around, being able to see all these other kids, even if they are not even barely crawling yet, right? And so getting them on the swing, this is a great way to start creating a really good habit of going to the parks with them. Wobbly walkies, now they have mastered crawling at this point, right? So they've conquered the horizontal plane. Time to get them into that vertical plane. So having a swing, this is my son at the park. And they have those that are pretty easy to put them into, and you can have them go back and forth this way. But I also brought one with me, and I want to show you guys this one because I think it's a really easy way for you to be able to see. This is one, it's so light. You can see how light it is. It's just a little tight one. I love these that you can just put them around anything. I've taken my kids on the boat and had them swinging. You can attach this to so many different things. I attach it to my indoor play gym all the time. But my kids have fallen asleep in these guys. It's just a really great way to do some vestibular movement, especially once your child has mastered that horizontal plane and they're ready to go into that vertical plane at that point. The next one is putting them, so when they're steady strides, this is a perfect time to actually introduce them to sitting on the swing by themselves. So I notice at parks all the time, people don't even try their child at this stage of the game on a swing that's not supported. But if you think about it, that's where they can get so much balance. You're not going to have them swinging super high. You're going to be right there. You're going to have a lot of control over the situation. But getting them to understand, oh, I need to hold on. Oh, I need to control my own posture as we get to go swinging. And then they're going to tell you, mama higher, mama bigger, mama faster, right? Or dad, or whoever you guys are with these kids, right? But they're going to tell you when they want more vestibular input. And so I think it's really important to get them on these swings way earlier than most people typically do. The next one is being able to utilize swings in a lot of other different ways. And so I brought some different examples for that. First of all, I love a dowel rod. I think that is like one of my favorite brain building tools, but you can get your baby at this point. They're really going to have no problem holding on. I'm going to hold this baby on because obviously it's a doll. But being able to get some swinging motion here, this is something you can literally take anywhere that you want to, but just bringing them, and when they're holding on, they're just going to go back and forth, doing it over a soft surface. You're not bringing them way up off the ground, right? You're just giving them the opportunity to swing back and forth like this. This, like I said, simple dowel rod, probably like $1 at like your local home goods or home improvement store. Another thing is I love pool rings. Okay. So pool rings are another great way. You're going to have your baby hold right onto this. I could not, of course, find two of the same in my house this morning, but you're going to have them hold on. They're going to hold on, and you can just bring them up and swing them back and forth like this. This is just a really fun exercise. You can also swing them and spin them. I know we talked about that in previous ways too. I also love a good gymnastics bar. Just giving them, because then they're not counting on you, they can just go help themselves. And so giving them that ability is really important, especially at this stage of brain development. The next one is a sensory swing. These sensory swings, I brought this too. Sensory swing, it's made out of fabric, so you can see it this way. I'll say this, I wake up and get ready, and start making breakfast for my kids. I can't tell you how often I walk out and my kids are just hanging out inside of this little swing. And sometimes they're not even swinging; they're just getting that proprioceptive input of hanging out cocooned in something, right? But for the most part, they love to kind of do Supermans with it. I'll show you that in just a little bit, but this is an excellent tool, and you really don't want to do it too much before this stage. For the most part, a lot of these you can utilize at different stages, but this one is better if we introduce this a little bit later, just because it's kind of hard to get in and out of. But again, that coordination is so good for their brain. And so the last stage 8, I love being able to see and teach kids to go upside down and swinging upside down, whether their knees are up around something. You can see over here, I have a doorway swing, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, that just gives them, different options. I'm going to show you this, but you can see these different kinds of options so that they can help themselves and flip on over. They can put their knees on this and be able to swing upside down. The more that we give our children the opportunity, and especially at lower levels, so that maybe your child is not, like, if they do fall, they're not falling very far, because we have control over that, because we're able to change it with our child. Makes such a huge difference. It gives the child so much confidence, and you're going to see they get hurt way, way less often. And so it gives a lot of other people heart attacks, but you will be confident knowing that your child is confident in their body, and that their brain and body awareness is at a totally different level. Okay. So swinging is great for all ages. I love this is my dad actually with my kids, just in a hammock that we have outside. And this is like another place I feel like we'll just sit and look at the trees and look at the sky and check out the different formations in the clouds. And it's just an amazing bonding time. But that swinging side to side like that is, again, it's regulating their nervous system, but it's also stimulating the brain in all those rhythmic ways that we just discussed, which I think is just a huge impact on the brain overall. And honestly, it's good for you too. So all of the swings, all the porch swings, all of the ways that you can swing, there's so many ways to incorporate this into your life. You just got to make sure that you get it into your life every day. So in order for us to make swinging easy, most people will tell me, oh, but I don't have a swing at home, right? We have to go to a playground for that. How am I going to get this in multiple times a day? Well, this is one thing where you got to build it, right? Like, you got to build it so they can help themselves. And the thing is the benefits, it oftentimes is the place I find my kids when I'm trying to get things done. And it's so nice to know that we don't use screens in our house anyways, but it entertains kids for hours and hours, right? And it's all building that brain. It's playful, it's active. So building spots in your house for this, I'm going to give you some ideas for that, but I'm also going to be sending you guys this home brain building gym, what it takes to create this, what it looks like, all the different types of equipment that you might want for the different stages of your child's brain. And so we want to be able to give you a good resource for that, and that makes a really massive difference. So you guys will get that as a link today. So definitely be looking for that, and our links from yesterday as well will be coming into an email for you. In there, one of the biggest things, I just want to talk about some of the things that I think specifically when it comes to swinging. I have a huge passion for this product, so much so that my husband and I actually just bought Easy Play Gyms. It's an indoor gym company, so it's all wooden, and it has places for swings, different kinds of swings. We have ladder swings, all these different things. I'm obviously climbing, monkey bars. Finding a place for this in your home makes such a massive difference. We'll be coming into production, and they're actually in production right now. Should have product in time for Christmas. So be watching for that. If you're really interested, definitely contact me and let me know. We're excited to be pulling this out, but it's a great piece of equipment to have in your house, specifically for like those rainy days, right? We have a bunch of equipment outside of our house too, but indoors, it's just great to have some place for your kid to get those wiggles out. We have a bedtime routine. hang out on it every night before bed because we sleep better. Another big one is just having a gymnastics bar. Like I mentioned before, this is amazing because your child can just walk up and swing right there. I usually put a mat underneath of it. I don't have a picture of this, but my older ones like to get and do pull-ups on the bar and get pulled themselves all the way up so that they're able to like do rotations and swings around it. So that's another great buy. This doorway swing, I was actually just looking at it on Amazon today. It says it's frequently returned, which I don't know why. It is super easy to install. It's one of the best products I have ever seen. I love it because it has little carabiners at the top and you can easily switch things out. Like here is another one of their pieces. Let me just make myself a little bit bigger here. But here's another. So you just literally snap it right in and you can change them out very easily. This also comes with that if you get more pieces. But I love that because all you need for that, the Easy Play, you have to have a little bit more space and an area designed for that. However, this is simply a doorway and you can hang, you can swing, you can climb, you can jump, you can have all of these different climbing pieces to it as well. So just makes a really huge difference, especially if brain building is your goal with your children. And then I already showed you guys this. We have taken this out on the boat. It's super lightweight, super easy to travel with. Just another thing that can attach to so many different things, especially when you're not quite ready to have like a normal swing. It's nice to have another option that you can take. And then the last one is that sensory swing that I showed you. I love these, the material of these. They're so super, super soft and super safe and really, really fun. Most of my kids will get in them. Oftentimes I'll see one head at each end. So they spend a lot of time in this sensory swing. And I think it's just a really fun way to incorporate that into your home as well. And so today, just a quick recap. We talked about primitive babies, what our methods of raising our kids should look like. We talked about swinging, that rhythmic repetition, and how that boosts focus, regulation, and timing. It also helps organize that cerebellum, like strengthening coordination, attention, and even language. And so today was so fun, but your homework for today, hopefully you guys are like really starting to build yourselves a program because so far, this is 4 movements that we have. Each day, I want you guys to spend 3 to 5 minutes of swinging with your baby or with your child or allowing your child to do that. We need that rhythm, that focus, that repetition makes such a huge difference. 3 to 5 minutes is not very long. So most kids are not going to tolerate only 3 to 5 minutes. They're going to want to do a lot longer than that. And especially if they're obsessed with how that is feeding their brain. Make sure you're noting after spending some time with your kid swinging, how's their body? Are they calm? Are they balanced? Are they focused afterwards? That like just makes a huge difference. Oftentimes I homeschool my kids. So a lot of the times if I'm not seeing focus, they have to do 25 jumping jacks and then go sit on the swing for 2 minutes. And so they're never mad about that punishment. So we get things moving that way. And just something I'm going to remind you guys every day is movement is just not an optional at any age, right? Not even for you guys. Movement is a nutrient for the body. And it's the movement is the foundation of mastery, which is something we're going to talk about tomorrow, that mastery and how it directly impacts our athleticism. And so in that today, what I want to talk to you guys or what I want to bring to you guys today is any questions that you've had, whether it's questions specifically about swinging, about any things. I would love to hear your questions today so that we can take out your entire program and experience to the next level because I love getting to teach this stuff to you guys. So my first question is, why can't you train the next level right away? She is close to pass level 2. Does she have to pass level 2 before she can train level 3 and why? No, there's definitely different exercises that actually cross over a lot. And so a lot of these things are safe for for kids a little bit like below levels, my biggest thing is just being able to create variety is really important. But there are some things that maybe a child is not, their core might not be developed as much. So they're going to have a little bit more floppiness when you introduce some of these vestibular exercises. And so we want to make sure that their system is strong. But if you feel like the challenge is great for your child and your child loves these movements, like it's okay to introduce things beforehand. So I would say there's definitely flexibility to that. And one of the things that I love about my program, about what Doman says, is you know your kid the best. My job is to introduce you to all of these movements, and I pray that you just utilize them in ways that you absolutely see fit for your child. So I'd say go ahead and if you feel like they're ready to move on to stage 3, even though they're not rolling front to back and back to front, then go ahead and look ahead. I would way rather see you doing more than less all the time. So great question. Thank you for asking. My next question, I struggle getting my baby's belly off the ball in yesterday's stage 3 activity. Advice on how to hold them properly. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have a ball with me today since I am not at home, but I'm going to do the best that I can to show you. So this is actually a lot of the times when a child is not able to kind of hold themselves on that all fours position, we do need to just help them understand what we're kind of wanting. So bringing the hand underneath while you're also stabilizing the ball is really helpful. A big thing with this that oftentimes means the core is just not quite as strong as you want, as it's going to be, right? And so doing some baby setups where I don't really have a way to show you guys this. I can send you a video for this as well, but where they're laying on the ground, you get their hands in your thumbs and you're just bringing them back and forth. They should boat, almost like they kind of stay in the same position as you rock them back and forth. That's where the core is engaged, and that's really going to build up a lot of strength so that they will want to be able to stay up on all fours. But oftentimes just putting them in that position, holding their hands and their feet so that they'll hold up in that all fours position, and then bouncing them specifically on the ball that way can also help. It's like building that vestibular pathway and making sure that they're able to be on all fours. So I hope you find that helpful. If you have further questions, definitely send them, but that's a great way to do that. Is lying on their back on the floor count as a benefit movement? Yes, it does. So laying on your back is still important, right? The biggest thing and the problem with the way that things are happening in society today is that nobody is laying their babies on their back or on their bellies to sleep. So they're spending tons of time on their back. So babies are really comfortable on their back. So therefore they're not getting enough time on their tummy. So back movement, there's tons of benefits of that as well. But we're typically getting plenty of movement or of experience, in that horizontal plane on our back. So sideline play and laying babies on their tummy are things that we have to consciously do to make sure that they're learning all those planes, because when babies on their back, they are able to still move around and get a little bit of input. But think about it, when they're on their tummy, anytime they move, they're getting tons of input, right? They're getting tons of input from the floor. They're getting tons of input from their body. They're wanting to bring their head up, which is going to help build strength and overall get them ready for the next milestones that are coming. Whereas laying on the back is really not progressing them a ton. So there's a benefit, but for the most part, we don't need to consciously try to purposely get our kid on their back more. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because the more that we put them on their tummy, the further and faster that they're going to advance. So it's not bad to put a child on their back, is what I'm trying to say. We just have them there way too often. All right, next question. When I did the spinning stage 2 with my son, his eyes stabilized only on one side, and on the other side, it was mostly still. Is that a problem? Yeah, there's definitely a lack of symmetry there. It doesn't mean that your child has necessarily a problem, but their vestibular pathways are not integrated properly. So your child definitely needs more vestibular movements. And so watching them, being able to observe them on those occasions, being able to see, like, is there maybe a little bit of laziness in one eye? You can overcome that. You can overcome that with vestibular movements, which is really awesome. That doesn't mean that your child needs a diagnosis at this point in time, but it does mean there's something that's not connecting the same way, which is exactly why we're doing these things. So I'm so excited that you've already been able to notice this about your child. When we do that movement, and come in this way and being able to look at baby, as long as they're having fun, it's going to be really good at getting more emotion in. So if it were my child, that would mean I would up that. Instead of doing it twice a day, I would at least do it 4 to 5 times a day, and see if you don't see some improvement with that. And also really hit the rest of vestibular exercises pretty hard, because there's all of those things, especially swinging, is going to really give that vestibular ocular connection in the brain stimulation. And so that's what we want as we are training with these babies, is you're going to create neural pathways that right now, those paths, like if we take that analogy of going from the house to the shed and the shed back to the house, like it's pretty grassy right now for your kid, right? And so what we need to do is we need to go back and forth and make it easy, so that we've got that motion, so that the writing is there. So I think you really want to strive for symmetry when it comes to what that nystagmus, that eye movement is. So great question. Thank you for asking that. You're going to see awesome changes. Next one. Oh, he gets really fussy when I put him on his belly. Any advice? Yeah. So anytime that you can, a lot of the times babies, so sometimes it's the fact that they don't want to be left alone. So always make sure that if baby is on their belly, that we're not just like putting them on the floor and walking away. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake a lot of parents make, is just, okay, we need some tummy time. I'm going to put baby in tummy time, and then I'm going to go get a few things done. They learn to hate tummy time because that means they're alone. Babies don't love being alone. And so my biggest thing, what I always tell my patients when they tell me that their kids hate tummy time, is we get into different tummy things that count as tummy time. So for example, instead of holding your baby like this, where they're upright, we're going to go into a position like this, and you can hold them like that. Even when people are sitting here in consultations or whatever, I have them put their baby, like if they're sitting, they're going to put their baby across their lap, just to constantly be working that motion. And a lot of the times, just patting their booty and like making sure they're moving, they're going to fall in love with being on their belly, because they're going to get stronger and they're going to get better at it when they're on you. And then you're going to be able to have a little bit more of like where you can lay them down and they're going to entertain themselves a little bit. But right now, when they're like not super strong and they're struggling with tummy time, it's really important that you just do it with them. So I hope that helps as well. All right, next question. My kid doesn't lay on their back at all, starting at 4.5 months. When she started rolling, is this an issue, not laying on their back? Now she's 7 months old and starting to crawl. No, I don't think that that's a problem. I think that, if you're laying on your back, you really don't get to do much, right? And so as soon as they can roll, they're just like, blam, I'm going. I know diaper changes used to be like a WWF experience for me, because my kids didn't want to be on their back either, because they just want to move. They want to feed their brain. And so crawling is exactly what they need to be doing. They need to be going up like that. So it's okay if they're up and rocking and rolling and don't want to hang out and lay on their back. That is 100% totally fine for a child. It's just very difficult to change their diaper. So great question. Thank you. Do we have another question, Madison? All right. Well, thank you guys today for everything. Tomorrow is our last day. Oh, I do have one more. What if my baby doesn't want to lie on their tummy because he keeps rolling over? Okay, so once babies roll and they are maybe having the opposite problem, right? You're able to put them down on their belly, but since they can roll right out of that and go into the back, they keep doing that. It's a game. Like I would keep putting them on their belly and letting them roll, because that input is like building their system. So continuing to put them on their tummy, they can roll, put them on their tummy, they can roll, they can play a little bit, put them on their tummy, they can roll, right? And so just constantly being a little bit more aware. If you can get some really fun toys, maybe get some water for them to splash in. All of those kinds of activities are going to keep baby wanting to be on their belly a little bit more. But just know that it can be like kind of a fun game in that way as well. Can you show how eyes stabilize during vestibular activities? Okay, that's kind of hard to do. I'm trying to think of exactly how to show you that. But when we're doing different kinds of vestibular activities, so for example, when we were talking about the spinning, right? What happens is if you look at your child after you've done maybe 10 spins, you're going to see their eyes kind of going like this. It's called nystagmus. It's normal. It's totally normal. But you'll see those, and it's what makes you feel dizzy, right? So if you spin around a bunch, if you look at your eyes, yours isn't going to be as obvious as a young child. But you're still like those eyes go back and forth. Like I said, it's called nystagmus. And so I maybe can find you guys a video on nystagmus so that I can maybe send out a link so you can see exactly what I'm talking about with the spinning. But with other vestibular activities, for example, today we were talking about swinging, and as babies coming back and forth, you don't want them just like spacing off, right? That if they're just spacing off and not really righting themselves, then their input isn't as optimized. And so you want to just see that they're engaging in their surroundings, that they're righting themselves, that they're not, off to the side like this as they're swinging. I mean, if they're getting tired, that's okay. But like that's what I'm meaning by that. I hope that answers your question. Let me see if I can find you guys a video of nystagmus. I think I was able to capture one of my daughter, but I couldn't find it the other day, and I can't throw videos on StreamYard. So so I will get you guys a good example of that so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, great. So that concludes day 4. I'm really excited for day 5. We're going to wrap it all up into a pretty little bow tomorrow and make sure that you feel really good about all the things that you've learned, that all the things about vestibular movements, but also understanding exactly how to apply them into your child's life so that you can continue to do this for a long time coming. I hope you love all the resources that we gave you guys today, and I'm excited to see you tomorrow. So have a great day. Bye.